A 68-year-old grandmother discovers her son-in-law has stolen $340,000 from her security company. But instead of calling the police, she does something way smarter. She builds a trap so perfect that he walks right into it, records everything, and destroys his life with evidence he created himself. This is the story of the reverse heist, and you won't believe how brilliant this woman is. The room looks like Mission Control met a cozy library. Multiple monitors glow in the darkness. Surveillance feeds cycling through various angles. Security diagrams cover one wall. On another, framed photos show a younger Margaret Chen, now 68, with sharp eyes and a warm smile, shaking hands with corporate executives and police commissioners. Margaret sits at her desk, silver hair pulled back, reading glasses perched on her nose. She's reviewing financial documents on her tablet when something catches her eye. She zooms in, scrolls back, compares numbers. Her expression doesn't change, but she sets the tablet down very slowly. She reaches for her phone, hesitates, then puts it back. Instead, she opens a drawer and pulls out a leather-bound notebook, the kind with actual paper. She starts writing. Sunlight streams through the kitchen windows the next morning. Margaret makes coffee with the precision of someone who's done this 10,000 times. Her daughter Rachel, 38, with tired eyes and forced cheerfulness, sits at the kitchen island, phone in hand. Mom, about the retirement party. David thinks we should do it at the country club instead of the office. Rachel says. Margaret pours 2 cups of coffee and slides one to Rachel. David's been thinking a lot lately, hasn't he? What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, sweetheart. Just an observation. Rachel's phone buzzes. She glances at it and types something quickly. How are things with the business? Margaret asks. Fine. Great, actually. David says we're up 20% this quarter. That's wonderful. Margaret sips her coffee, watching her daughter over the rim of the cup. And you've seen the actual numbers, Mom. He's the CFO. That's literally his job. Of course, I'm just being a nosy old woman. You're not old, and you're never nosy without reason. They share a look. Rachel's phone buzzes again. I have to go. Think about the country club. I'll think about it. Rachel kisses her mother's cheek and leaves. Margaret stands alone in her kitchen, coffee cup in hand, staring at nothing. After a moment, she picks up her own phone and makes a call. Tony, it's Margaret Chen. I need a favor. Later that day, Margaret sits in a quiet coffee shop across from Tony Morrison, a 55-year-old ex-cop turned private investigator, weathered but trustworthy. A manila folder sits between them. You were right. He's been skimming for about 8 months. Started small, 5,000 here, 10,000 there, buried in vendor payments, consultant fees that don't exist. Tony says, how much total, so far? About $340,000. Margaret's jaw tightens, but her voice stays steady. Anyone else involved? His assistant, Bryce Kellerman, young guy, thinks he's smarter than he is. They've been routing money through 3 shell companies, fairly sophisticated for amateurs. Tony slides a USB drive across the table. Everything's on here. Bank records, emails, transaction logs, enough to put them both away for a long time. Margaret picks up the drive and turns it over in her fingers. You going to the police? Tony asks. Not yet, Margaret. I know he's family, but that's exactly why I'm not going to the police yet. My daughter loves him. She's built a life with him. If I burn this down wrong, I lose her too. So what are you going to do? Margaret looks at Tony with the kind of smile that made her legendary in the security business. The kind that meant someone was about to have a very bad day. I'm going to give them exactly what they want, and let them hang themselves with it. That night, Margaret works at her computer. 3 monitors showing different information. She's designing something. A flowchart appears on screen. Branches and decision trees, each node labeled with cryptic notes. She picks up her phone and dials. Rachel, I've been thinking, the country club sounds perfect for the party, but I want to do it right. Big set, everyone from the firm. On the other end, Rachel sits on the couch in her living room. David Park, 40 and handsome in an obvious way with too much confidence, lounges beside her, half watching TV. Really, you seemed hesitant this morning, Rachel says into the phone. I was, but you're right. After 40 years, I should go out with style. And I was thinking, it might be nice to make an announcement at the party. What kind of announcement? David mutes the TV and sits up straighter. About the business succession. I've been holding those shares for years, wondering what to do with them. Rachel looks at David. He's very interested now. Mom, we've talked about this. You don't have to decide anything right now. I'm 68, honey. When's the right time? Besides, I trust David. He's been handling the finances beautifully. Maybe it's time to make it official. David is practically vibrating. Rachel looks uncertain. We can discuss it more at dinner next week. Bring David. I want to talk to him about his vision for the company. Margaret continues. Okay, sure. I'll tell him. Perfect. Love you, sweetheart. Love you too. Rachel hangs up. David is already standing, pacing. Did she just say what I think she said? She wants to talk about succession. This is it. This is everything we've been working toward. David, don't get ahead of yourself. I'm not. But babe, if she transfers those shares, we're talking about real control, real money. He kisses her, practically glowing with excitement. Rachel smiles, but something in her eyes looks worried. Later that night, Margaret sits in her office, the light from her monitors washing over her face. On one screen, a recording of her phone call with Rachel plays back. On another, a detailed timeline. On the third, financial projections. She makes a note in her leather notebook. Hook set. Let him bite down. 1 week later, Margaret, Rachel, and David sit at an intimate table in a fancy restaurant. Wine has been poured. David is in full charm mode. Margaret, I have to tell you, when Rachel and I got married, I never imagined I'd have the honor of working with someone like you. You built something incredible, David says. We built something incredible. It's been a team effort. Absolutely. And I hope you know how seriously I take my role. The financial health of the company is everything to me. Margaret takes a sip of wine, studying him over the glass. I can see that. The quarterly reports have been excellent. Thank you. I've been implementing some new strategies, streamlining vendor relationships, optimizing cash flow. Optimization, one of my favorite words. She sets down her glass. I wanted to talk to you both about something. I'm creating a new digital system for the company, a complete overhaul of our security protocols and financial tracking, state of the art. That sounds ambitious, David says. It is, but I want to leave the company in the best possible shape. And I thought, since you'll be taking on more responsibility, you should be involved from the ground up. David leans forward, interested. In fact, I'd like you to have early access to the new system. Test it out before we roll it out company-wide. You'd have a special administrative account. Complete transparency into every transaction, every account. I'd be honored. Excellent. I'll have it set you up next week. They'll give you the credentials at my retirement party. Consider it a symbolic passing of the torch. Rachel looks between them, a small smile on her face. This is wonderful. I'm so glad you two are working together on this. So am I, sweetheart. So am I. David raises his glass. To new beginnings. They all clink glasses. Margaret's smile doesn't quite reach her eyes. That night, Margaret sits with Toni Morrison in her home office. Between them, multiple laptops and tablets display complex diagrams. You're building a honeypot, Toni says. I'm building a mousetrap, and I'm using the world's most expensive cheese. Walk me through it. Margaret points to a diagram on screen. The new security system is real, but I'm creating a parallel structure. Shadow accounts that look legitimate but are actually completely isolated. When David logs in with his admin credentials, he'll see what looks like the full financial picture of the company, but it's not. It's better. I'm going to show him exactly what he wants to see. Accounts with poor oversight, vendor relationships that look exploitable, security gaps that seem like opportunities. You're giving him a map to rob you. I'm giving him a map to think he's robbing me. Every transaction he makes in the system will be logged, time-stamped, and completely traceable, but from his perspective, he'll think he's getting away with it. Toni leans back, impressed. That's diabolical. That's defensive strategy. I didn't build a security firm by waiting for threats to materialize. I built it by anticipating them. What about your daughter? Margaret's expression softens, just slightly. Rachel is smart, but she's also in love. Love makes you blind to things you'd normally see. I need ironclad evidence, not just that he did it, but that he intended to do it. Premeditation, planning, greed. You're protecting her. I'm protecting all of us. When this goes down, I want there to be no doubt, no ambiguity, no way for him to explain it away or make her feel guilty for not believing him. And if he doesn't take the bait, then I go to the police with what we already have. But I know men like David, they always want more, especially when they think they've found an easy mark. She turns back to her screens, fingers flying over the keyboard. The party's in 3 weeks. 3 weeks later, The country club ballroom is filled with about 80 people mingling, drinking, and celebrating. A banner reads, "Congratulations, Margaret, to 40 years of excellence." Margaret works the room like the professional she is. Warm handshakes, genuine smiles. She stops at a group that includes David and Bryce Kellerman, a 28-year-old with nervous energy and an expensive watch. "David, Bryce, are you both enjoying yourselves?" Margaret asks. "It's a fantastic party, Margaret. Well deserved," David replies. "Congratulations, Miss Chen," Bryce adds. "Thank you, Bryce. I hear you've been invaluable to David. I appreciate hard work." Bryce glances at David, who gives him a small nod. "David, did I get you set up with those new admin credentials?" Margaret asks. "They did, just this afternoon. I haven't had a chance to explore the system yet, but it looks impressive. Take your time, get familiar with it. I want your feedback. You'll see some things that might surprise you. Opportunities I've been considering. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure you are." She squeezes his arm and moves on. David and Bryce exchange a look across the room. Rachel watches her mother. Something in her expression is uncertain. Later that night, David sits at his desk in his home office, laptop open. Bryce stands behind him, looking over his shoulder. They've both loosened their ties and kicked off their shoes. The remains of celebration drinks sit nearby. "Okay, here we go," David says. He types in the admin credentials. The screen loads. A new interface appears, sleek and sophisticated. "Holy shit. What?" Bryce asks. "Look at this. Full access. Every account, every transaction, everything." He clicks through screens, his excitement building. "This is incredible. Look at these vendor accounts. See this one? Chen Security Solutions has been paying them $50,000 a month for the past 2 years. So I created that vendor. It's one of our shells. She doesn't know it's fake. And look, she's built it right into the new system. She thinks it's legitimate." Bryce leans closer, studying the screen. "Are you sure she doesn't know? How could she? I buried it in hundreds of other transactions. She's retiring. She's not checking every line item anymore. She's trusting the system, and she's trusting me. This seems too easy." That's because she's old school. She built this company on handshake deals and personal relationships. She doesn't understand modern financial systems the way we do. David scrolls through more screens. "Look at this. There are at least 6 other accounts here with minimal oversight. She's practically begging someone to take advantage. So what do we do?" David sits back in his chair, thinking. "We escalate, slowly. Nothing dramatic. We increase our monthly take by maybe 10%, spread it across multiple accounts, make it look like normal business growth. How much are we talking? If we're smart, we could pull another $500,000 over the next year, maybe more, and by the time anyone notices, if they ever do, we'll be untouchable. She have transferred the shares. I'll be running the company. Who's going to question me?" Bryce looks nervous. "I don't know, man. This is a lot more exposure. This is opportunity. This is everything we've been working toward. Trust me." They both stare at the glowing screen, making plans. What they don't see is the small indicator in the corner of the interface, a nearly invisible pixel, pulsing quietly, recording everything. In her home office across town, Margaret watches the same screen on her monitor. She sees David and Bryce huddled together. She sees their excitement. She sees them planning. Her expression is calm, almost serene. She clicks a button and the audio feed kicks in. She can hear every word. Tony Morrison sits beside her, shaking his head. "He took it. The greedy bastard actually took it. Of course he did. Men like David always do. What now?" Now we watch. We let him make his moves. Every transaction he initiates in that system is building our case. Every conversation, every plan, every dollar he tries to steal, it's all evidence. "How long do you let this run?" "As long as it takes. I want everything. I want proof of intent, proof of planning, proof of escalation. I want so much evidence that even the most expensive lawyer in the world can't explain it away." Tony watches the screen. "You're really something. You know that. I built a security company, Tony. I've spent 40 years learning how criminals think, how they operate, what makes them confident, what makes them sloppy." She looks at the screen, at her son-in-law's face, twisted with greed. David thinks he's playing chess. He doesn't realize he's been in checkmate since the beginning. Over the next 2 weeks, Margaret watches from her command center as David and Bryce make their moves. They're careful at first, small increases in existing fraudulent transactions, testing the waters. Then they get bolder. They create 2 new shell companies. They reroute payments. They adjust invoices. Every single action is logged, every conversation recorded, every keystroke captured. Margaret compiles everything into a massive digital dossier: bank transfers, email chains, screenshots of their planning sessions, audio recordings of their conversations. It's beautiful in its completeness, airtight. But something else is happening too. Rachel is getting suspicious. Margaret notices it one afternoon when Rachel stops by, unannounced. Her daughter looks tired, worried. "Mom, can I ask you something?" Rachel says, standing in the kitchen. "Of course, sweetheart. That new system you built, the one you gave David access to, how secure is it?" Margaret measures her words carefully. "It's the most secure system I've ever designed." "Why?" "David's been acting strange. He's on his computer all hours. He's secretive about what he's working on. When I ask him about it, he says he's just learning the new system, getting familiar with everything before the transition." That sounds reasonable, does it? Because something feels off. You know that feeling when you know something's wrong but you can't quite put your finger on it. Margaret's heart aches. She can see the conflict in her daughter's eyes. Love versus instinct. Trust versus suspicion. "Rachel, do you trust me?" Margaret asks. "Of course I do." "Then, I need you to trust me now. Can you do that?" Rachel studies her mother's face. "What's going on? I can't tell you yet, but soon. Very soon. And when I do, I need you to remember that everything I'm doing because I love you." Tears well up in Rachel's eyes. "Mom, you're scaring me. I know. I'm sorry, but please, just a little longer. Trust me a little longer." Rachel nods, wiping her eyes. They hug, and Margaret holds her daughter tight, wishing she could protect her from what's coming. That night, Margaret calls Tony. "It's time. I have everything we need." "You're sure?" "I'm sure. David made a transaction this afternoon. He moved $75,000 from the operating account to one of his shells. He's getting greedy. It's escalating. If I wait any longer, he might actually cause real damage before I can stop him." "What's the play?" "I'm calling a board meeting tomorrow afternoon. Emergency session. I'm going to tell them I've discovered a security breach in the new system, that someone with administrative access has been attempting to manipulate financial records." "You're not going to name David?" "Not immediately. I'm going to present the evidence first. Let them see the pattern. Let them reach the conclusion themselves. And then, when there's no other explanation possible, I'll reveal who had the access." That's cold. That's thorough. I won't have anyone thinking I'm just a bitter old woman targeting herself. The evidence has to speak for itself. The next afternoon, the conference room at Chen Security Solutions is filled with the board of directors, 8 people sitting around a large table, looking confused and concerned. Margaret stands at the head of the table, a laptop open in front of her. David and Bryce are there too. David looks confident, relaxed. He has no idea what's coming. Rachel sits near the back, her expression worried. "Thank you all for coming on short notice," Margaret begins. "I'll get straight to the point. 3 days ago, our new security system detected anomalous activity in the financial management module. Someone with administrative credentials has been attempting to manipulate transaction records." The room erupts in murmurs. David's face doesn't change, but his body language shifts slightly. Alert now, wary. "I want to emphasize that no actual funds have been stolen through the new system," Margaret continues. "This is important. The attempts were made, but the security protocols I built into the architecture prevented any real damage. However, the attempts themselves are serious. They demonstrate clear criminal intent." She clicks a button. The screen behind her lights up with a financial dashboard. Over the past 2 weeks, someone has initiated 47 separate fraudulent transactions. They created dummy vendor accounts. They rerouted payments. They adjusted invoicing to hide the theft. Again, none of these transactions actually went through, but every attempt was logged, every keystroke recorded. David is very still now. Bryce looks like he might be sick. The attempted theft totals approximately $340,000. Interestingly, this matches almost exactly the amount that was stolen from the company over the previous 8 months through our old system, the system we were replacing specifically because I suspected it had been compromised. Margaret looks directly at David now. I built the new system as a trap. I gave administrative access to exactly one person, someone I wanted to trust, someone I hoped I was wrong about. The room is completely silent. David, would you like to explain why your login credentials were used for every single one of these attempted thefts? David stands up, his face flushed. This is insane. I don't know what you're talking about. Someone must have stolen my credentials. Or, you're setting me up because you never wanted me in this company in the first place. Margaret clicks another button. David's voice fills the room from the speakers. The recording from 2 weeks ago, from his home office, discussing the opportunities he saw in the system, planning the escalation, celebrating his access. David's face goes white. Bryce puts his head in his hands. That's not all, Margaret says quietly. She pulls up another screen. Bank records, transaction logs, email chains, 8 months of evidence, everything Tony found, plus everything new that David did in the trap system. I have documentation of every theft, every shell company, every fraudulent invoice. I have recordings of you and Bryce planning your strategy. I have keystroke logs showing exactly when and how you initiated each transaction in both the old and new systems. I have enough evidence to put you both in prison for a decade. Rachel stands up, her face streaked with tears. She looks at David, then at her mother. How long have you known? About 6 weeks. 6 weeks. And you didn't tell me. I couldn't, not until I had ironclad proof. Not until there was no possible explanation except the truth. Rachel turns to David. Tell me she's wrong. Please tell me she's wrong. David opens his mouth, closes it. He has nothing to say. The evidence is overwhelming. Get out, Rachel whispers. Then, louder. Get out. Get out of this building. Get out of my life. Get out. Security guards appear at the door. Margaret must have called them earlier. They escort David and Bryce from the room. David goes quietly, in shock. Bryce is crying. When they're gone, the board sits in stunned silence. Rachel stands at the back of the room, shaking. Margaret walks to her daughter. I'm so sorry. You knew he was doing this, and you let him keep going. I had to. If I'd stopped him too soon, he could have claimed it was a misunderstanding, a mistake. He could have manipulated you, manipulated the evidence. I needed it to be indefensible. You used him. You set him up. He set himself up. I just gave him the rope. He chose to hang himself with it. Rachel looks at her mother, hurt and anger and reluctant understanding, all warring on her face. I need some time. I know. Rachel leaves. Margaret stands alone at the front of the conference room, surrounded by board members who don't know what to say. I'm sorry you all had to witness that, Margaret says finally, but I wanted transparency. I wanted you to see everything, to understand that this wasn't personal vendetta. This was about protecting the company, about protecting all of us. The board members nod, still processing. They agree to press charges. They agree to cooperate fully with law enforcement. They agree that Margaret did the right thing, even if it was painful. Later that evening, Margaret sits in her home office. The monitors are dark now. The case is closed. Tony stopped by earlier with a bottle of scotch and they toasted to justice. But he's gone home now, and Margaret is alone. Her phone rings. It's Rachel, Mom. Hi, sweetheart. I've been thinking about everything, about what you did and why you did it. Okay, I'm still angry. I'm still hurt that you didn't trust me enough to tell me. I know, but I also understand. If you'd told me, I would have confronted him. I would have given him a chance to explain, and he would have lied to me, and I might have believed him, because I loved him, because I wanted to believe him. Yes, you took that choice away from me, but you also protected me from making the wrong one. Margaret's throat tightens. That's all I ever wanted to do. Protect you. I know. Mom, I know. They sit in silence for a moment, connected by the phone line, and 40 years of love and trust. Are you going to be okay? Margaret asks. Eventually, it's going to take time. But yeah, I think I am. Good. That's all I needed to hear. Mom, thank you for caring enough to do the hard thing. Always, sweetheart. Always. They hang up. Margaret sits in her dark office, looking at the blank monitors. Tomorrow, she'll get back to being retired. She traveled, she read, she enjoyed the life she worked so hard to build. But tonight, she allows herself a moment of satisfaction. She built a career on anticipating threats, on thinking 3 moves ahead, on understanding that the best security system isn't the one that keeps criminals out. It's the one that lets them in just far enough to hang themselves. David and Bryce will face trial. They'll probably go to prison. The company will recover. Rachel will heal. And Margaret Chen, master of security, architect of the perfect reverse heist, can finally rest knowing that she protected the people and things she loved most, not by building walls, but by building a trap so perfect that the criminals never saw it until it was too late. The checkmate was decided the moment David got greedy. He just didn't know he was already captured until Margaret was ready to say so. And that, Margaret thinks as she finally turns off the last light and heads to bed, is how you run a security company. You don't wait for the threat to come to you. You invite it in. You let it think it's winning. And then, when it's committed fully and there's no escape, you spring the trap. And that's how a 68-year-old grandmother turned her retirement party into the opening move of a chess game that ended with her son-in-law in handcuffs. Margaret didn't just catch a criminal. She built a trap so perfect that he walked right into it, thinking he was the smartest person in the room. The lesson: never underestimate someone who spent their entire career thinking 3 steps ahead of thieves. Sometimes the best security system isn't the one that keeps criminals out. It's the one that lets them in just far enough to hang themselves. If you enjoyed this story of brilliant revenge and strategic thinking, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more incredible true crime and justice stories. And let me know in the comments, would you have the patience to pull off something like this, or would you have gone straight to the police? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.